Welcome to another video, boys. It's good to see you again. Now, in this one, we're going to be covering the strongest builds for each and every class. I'm actually going to give you two as well. We're going to go for the one that is the best at Infernal Horde, and then we're going to go for the one that is the best for the pit/bossing. But every single build on this list is ultra super powerful and can do all of these things. But with the way the game is now, there is kind of an optimal setup for both types of content. Minus one or two classes, but we'll get into that in just a second. Now, all of this information comes from some of the best, if not the best players for the respective classes. And I'll leave a link down to all of their videos for the respective builds in the description down below. Make sure you check them out. These guys are the absolute best at what they do. And right as we jump into it, very important, these are end game builds. These are very high tier builds, so don't expect to be able to level with most of these. Starting us off then, we have the Necromancer, and this is coming from Ruse Cruise, and we're starting with the Blood Surge build, which is the one I'm going to recommend for doing Infernal Hordes. This is a 2-button wonder, really, like actually has no buttons to press except from Blood Surge, and it's a pretty funny one to see go around just blasting enemies away with just this one skill. Very straightforward, simplistic gameplay, but there ain't nothing wrong with that at all. Insane AoE clear. The gear requirements are not too bad whatsoever. You can get this one up and running pretty easily, and it's not too shy on bosses. And again, like I said, this build, like with every other, is going to be able to do everything in the game at a very, very high level. Moving on to what I would recommend then for the pit and bossing is another Ruse Cruise original, and it is the Bone Spirit build. This has huge nuke potential, hitting easily into the billions. Actually, one of the few on the list which can be used as leveling as well if you want to go for that. Again, the gear requirement, not all that bad, especially compared to the others on the list. Kind of a general thing for the Necromancer here. A lot of these builds are quite easy to get into. Another thing making it different from Blood Surge is there are actually buttons to press with this build, so you're going to have to get used to having some form of a rotation. You will have to put your curse down, use your corpse tendrils, and then Bone Spirit just to sort of give you the core gameplay loop there. However, that could be a bonus for those of you who don't want to fall asleep at the keyboard. And I mean, having corpse tendrils, that's a huge bonus. I fucking love that skill. Best skill in the game. Please give the Barb some version of that. Now moving on to the Druid, and giving us our first build is our boy Ace of Spades. Ace has got an absolute banger of a build here called Doomstorm, or I think it's going by Landslide as well. But this is an incredible build, just absolute chaos on the screen. Landslides and lightning bolts galore. Sometimes it's hard to see whether or not you're actually doing anything, but it is definitely doing something because this build has damage in buckets. So a fantastic all-rounder, actually pretty much the best across the board build for the Druid. So this is one that you can go into and absolutely use for everything. The AoE is insane. It will wipe the entire screen clean, has no problem with bosses, is very tanky, and just really, really, really fun to play. But I do want to offer an alternative because it is just too much fun to play, and that is Boulder. This is an insane build. It does incredible amounts of damage. It plays a lot like Whirlwind, so you know that's already an S tier bonus in my eyes. And it has insane single target DPS too. It can delete a tormented boss in less than a second. Huge carry potential here. It is fast as hell as well. You just kind of ramp up the boulders and run at full speed through a dungeon, killing everything in your path. An incredible build, a ton of fun. And we've got a build here for you to check out from my boy Screamheart, an absolute legend. Again, just a reminder, all of the links to everything I'm talking about down in the description. Next is going to be the Sorcerer, and we cannot talk about the Sorcerer without mentioning our boy, the absolute god of the class, Makuna, who's tearing Season 5 an absolute new one already. And the build that we're looking at is Lightning Spear. Now, this is one of the few classes, this and the Rogue, are the ones where I'm only going to recommend one build. And the reason for that is that this build is head and shoulders above everything else and is the only one that you really need. There are other options, but this is just so good. If you are the kind of person that's looking just for the best build in the game, full stop, out of all of the classes, this is the one, okay? And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. You can play what you want, I don't care. So as you can imagine, this build has everything. It has insane AoE DPS, the best in the game. Its single target falls behind quite a bit, but still like one of the best in the game. You're going to be doing tier 8s, no problem. You're going to be carrying tormented bosses, no problem. Absolutely none of that is an issue for this build. However, there are a few things that you need to keep in mind with it, and that is that the gear requirements are really high. You need a whole bunch of uniques and really well-rolled gear to get this up and running at this kind of level. You can play it earlier, but it'll be very clunky and not as good. That's another thing. Lots of buttons to press. Some people might like this, some people might hate this. But yeah, I mean, it's absolutely insane. You've got the full package here. It's like damn near invincible, wipes the screen clean, and has super good mobility as well. Now, moving on to the best class in the game. I laughed as I said that because we're going to be talking about the Barb. Yes, we are a little bit behind this season, but you know what? It doesn't matter. It's still the best class in the game in my heart, and that's all that matters. For the Infernal Horde, I'm going to recommend Whirlwind with Dust Devils, and this is kind of a new tech, a new spin on the build, you could say. But we're going for like a raw direct damage version with a max fury scaling and making use of the Magnum Opus. This actually does a ton of damage. Despite what people might say about the class, we are quite easily doing tier 8, carrying people through tier 8, and speed farming all of the other content in the game super easily. It is a really fun build to play. I am loving, absolutely loving that Whirlwind is a meta build right now because it's been one of my all-time favorites for the longest time. Thanks to the insane amount of cooldown reduction we've got this season as well, our shouts are like perma, so we have very low cooldown reduction on everything across the board thanks to the Martial Glyph, which gives us a 2-second cooldown on any non-shout when we use a shout. And we're just really tanky. Like, you know, having that shout uptime does really help with it. Now, there are a lot of things that can rip you instantly in this game, but, you know, it is what it is. We are still quite tanky outside of those edge cases. Then for pushing the pit and for pushing bosses, I would recommend Bash. Bash is still really strong. Maybe not quite as strong as in Season 4, but certainly not very far behind. We are hitting into the billions with this. You can absolutely one-shot a boss like Tormented Doriel, and it is doing pretty well inside of the pit as well. It's a straightforward build. It's actually a really versatile build as well. Bash allows you to play it a couple of ways. You can set it up to be just a right-click holder downer, or you can have it so that there's actually a rotation in there by having, you know, Steel Grasp and Hammer of the Ancients, which does make the build more powerful but also more clunky. You have that option to kind of flex where you go with it, but still a very good build, and definitely a lot of fun to play. Not too bad if you want to use it as an all-rounder. It does work for that, whereas Whirlwind, as you would expect, it's not the best bosser in the world, but by no means impossible to do with. And finally, moving on to the Rogue, and this is the second class where I'm only really making one recommendation, and that is Andariel's Barrage. This is an insane looking build. You'll know it when you see it because the entire screen is filled up with green arrows and you can't tell what the fuck is going on. Actually, at times, I swear this breaks the game engine where characters just start ice skating around wherever they are. Let me know if you've had this experience, because I have, and I'm pretty sure it's related to having an Andariel's Rogue in the group. But what you're gonna get is, of course, incredible AoE, absolutely melts bosses, you know, carrying a group of 4, no problemo whatsoever with this build. Probably the second strongest build in the game overall, very close behind the Sorc. It is tanky as hell as well, which is a surprise for a Rogue really, but Rogues have been getting very tanky since the last season. Things to be aware of with this build though, however, it does require a unique to work, which is the Andariel's headgear, so you will need that before you can even think about going this. It's very mobile, and it's just an all-round blaster build. It is one of those ones, again, where you have a lot of buttons to press, so again, if that's not for you, maybe you want to play Barb, you know, any reason to play Barb, really. But yeah, it's a fantastic build, definitely a one to look out for. And there they are, the best builds for every single class by the best players for the respective classes. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments below. Check out the Discord or the Twitch, all of the links for that in the description too, with all of the build guides. Hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Catch you on the next one. Love ya, bye. And now, moving on to what... Alright, hang on, cats are jumping all over the sink. One sec. Oi! What are you doing? Naughty boy. Bloody cats are all over the place. All right. Okay, let's try again. Where was I?